and welcome to my YouTube channel. One of my favorite TV shows of all time has to be The Andy Griffith Show. In its debut season, you will find the one and only Christmas episode that was filmed during the show's entire run. That episode also happens to be one of my favorite episodes of the entire series. In fact, it might just be my favorite holiday special of any television series ever. In this video, I'm going to take a look back at that masterpiece of holiday cheer and discuss my thoughts on why it might have been the one and only Christmas episode for the show. Now, The Andy Griffith Show debuted on October 3rd, 1960. Andy Griffith starred as Sheriff Andy Taylor, Ron Howard starred as his son Opie, and Don Knotts starred as his deputy, Barney Fife. Now, the initial season of the show had 32 episodes. These days, most shows have around 24 episodes per season. Now, the 11th episode of that debut season was titled Christmas Story and aired on December 19th, 1960. The episode is credited as being written by David Adler. Now, David Adler is in fact a pseudonym that was used by writer Frank Tarloff. Now, Tarloff had been blacklisted as a result from being an unfriendly witness when he testified during the House Committee on Un-American Activities in the 1950s. As a result, his career was so damaged that he moved his family to England for 12 years, where he was forced to use phony names and front writers. He was one of several screenwriters blacklisted in Hollywood during the Red Scare of the 1950s. So Christmas Story begins when a crotchety businessman from Mayberry named Ben Weaver wants a moonshiner named Sam Muggins locked up for Christmas. Now, you may be wondering why somebody would get thrown in jail for making moonshine, particularly since Prohibition ended in 1933. Well, at the time of this show, huge portions of the South were officially dry, which meant that any sale or use of alcohol was prohibited. Well, Andy is unsuccessful in talking Ben Weaver down, and ultimately he agrees to put Sam Muggins in jail. However, since it is Christmas Eve and Andy doesn't have the heart to keep Mr. Muggins separated from his family, he comes up with the great plan to arrest the entire Muggins clan and throw a Christmas Eve celebration right there in the courthouse. Now, as the evening progresses, Andy's family and his girlfriend at the time, Ellie Walker, arrive and the festivities begin. And one of the highlights of the episode is when Andy Griffith and Eleanor Donahue, who played Ellie, sing Away in a Manger while Andy plays the guitar. Now, this performance is just magical. And it becomes obvious that Ben Weaver is perhaps so crotchety because he's lonely and he doesn't have anyone to spend the holiday with. In fact, he keeps trying to look into the jail to watch the festivities and ultimately tries to get himself thrown into jail. And of course, Andy becomes wise to what Mr. Weaver is up to, and ultimately, Mr. Weaver warms up and comes back to the courthouse with a suitcase full of gifts for everyone. Now, Christmas Story is such a great episode. It always surprised me that there weren't any other Christmas episodes throughout the show's entire 8-season run. In trying to find a reason for this, I haven't been able to find anything official, but I have a theory as to why this might be the case. I believe that Andy Griffith and the show's producers knew that they had already hit a home run with Christmas Story, and that it couldn't be improved upon. Now, an interesting side note, actress Eleanor Walker had stated that she was rather unhappy during the filming of the first season of The Andy Griffith Show, and despite having been given a contract for 3 years, she asked to be let out of her contract after that first season ended. What a shame, because she really was quite good on the show. Now, here's a fun behind-the-scenes picture of Andy Griffith, Eleanor Donahue, and Ron Howard from that episode. Now, what about you? How many of you remember this episode of The Andy Griffith Show, and what are your thoughts on why it was the only Christmas episode of the series? Please share your comments. Also, I would really appreciate it if you would consider subscribing to my channel, where I generally talk about the movies, TV shows, and music that I grew up with during the 70s, 80s, and 90s. As always, thank you so much for watching, stay safe out there, and have a great day.